I'm Kerry Walde here at the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., talking to you about Christianity and science. Christianity and science are often pitted against each other, but in my earlier vlog and blog, you'll see that that idea is relatively recent and completely fabricated. In fact, the scientific revolution was launched because the Christian worldview gave humanity fertile soil for the explosion of science in the 1500s through the 1800s. And there's no less than 4 ideas that are consistent with Christianity that provided for this soil. The first one is the idea that if God exists, then He is rational and has a mind, and He gave us a mind that is also rational and that could inform us and our senses about reality. You see, Darwin had a doubt that if mistakes or if evolution got us here, then could we really trust our minds? Writing to a friend, he says this: "With me, the horrid doubt always arises whether the convictions of a man's mind, which had been developed from the mind of lower animals, are of any value or at all trustworthy. Would anyone trust the convictions of a monkey's mind, if there are any convictions in such a mind?" And so Darwin himself had his doubts about our thinking ability as humans if evolution arrived at this. Dawkins tells us that evolution is driven by mutations, which are in essence mistakes in the copying of the DNA code. And if mistakes got our thinking here, how do we know our thinking is not mistaken? And these are really good questions, because the brain is one of the most amazing things in the universe. If you think about it, while you're in utero, your mom's womb is wiring 250,000 different neurons and neuronal connections every minute over those 9 months. 250,000 neurons and neuronal connections every minute, to where you're going to have 100 billion neurons in the fully formed brain with over 100 trillion connections. Now, Chris Cherniak did some research on this about how the connections are so important and how can they fit in such a small space. And what he realized and what he discovered in his research is that the brain is optimized for connections, over 100 trillion connections. Now, if mistakes got us here, how can we trust that our thinking is not mistaken? However, with the Christian worldview, we recognize that a reasoning God created our reasoning faculties so that we could trust them to inform us about reality. And we could go about as stewards to accomplish discovery in the world that God created and the world that God created us to live in. So this is just one of the ideas that really formed the fertile seedbed for the explosion of science in Western Europe in the 1500s. All right, for more on this, you can check out my blog, kerrywalde.com. Godspeed.